And just before we go any further, I want to speak with you about how I'm recording this podcast. I'm using something called Anchor by Spotify. And if you haven't heard about it, it's the easiest way to make a podcast. It's got everything you need in one place. So it has all the tools that allow you to record and edit your podcast right from your phone or computer like I am. And when you're hosting, you can also distribute your podcast on listening platforms like Spotify, Apple Podcast, and many more. So really, it's everything you need to make a podcast in one place. And best of all, which I love, it's totally free. So if you're looking to create a podcast similar to this, and I would wholly encourage everybody to give that a go, because you can generate some great passive income by doing that and help spread a lot of information to help other people. Download the Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started. I'm wishing you all the best of luck. Hello and welcome to another episode. It is Coach Mark in Manila here from initial-impact.com and of course ESLbusinessenglishexperts.com. A warm welcome to you all. Now, some of you may have started following me quite a long time ago when my podcast was solely focused on helping my ESL advanced business English students to either improve their spoken or written or just general conversational confidence using English as a second language. And it has evolved over time as I've evolved in my coaching practice and understanding more what my clients and my students are struggling with or wishing to achieve in their lives. So these days, my podcasts are a blend, a fusion, of English as a second language still, and your confidence and the coaching to help you achieve that and make the right impact in interviews if you're trying to work overseas. But of course, also about now wealth attraction. I'm using NLP, which is neuro-linguistic programming, the way that we speak and the types of words and phrases that we use to speak to ourselves. And also now quantum attraction, so fusing quantum physics. Yes, quantum physics, you heard me right, with all of this other great stuff. And really, I'm very interested in encouraging all of you to think about how you're using your minds, because what you believe you're capable of, you will absolutely achieve. And if you think you can't, you are absolutely right. Okay, so let's move on today to the topic of this podcast, which is actually how to create wealth. How to create wealth from property, especially UK property. Now, you might say, well, what on earth do I know about UK property? Well, here's the thing. I have many years experience within the UK property market, and in fact, overseas property markets. For a good period of time, I was a joint company director of a property services company in the UK, supplying developers up and down, from the top to the bottom of the UK, with all of the property related services and working a lot with new build developers. Furthermore, I have worked for new build developers, actually selling and promoting their show homes and their new build developments, both in the UK and also overseas, mainly in the Canary Islands, Spain. But of course, I have experience of other markets as well. Personally speaking, I have purchased and sold 2 properties within the UK. And my family, let's just put it this way, they moved more times than I think I had hot dinners being a young child. So my parents were always doing up, selling, and then moving on to other properties and reinvesting that money to capitalize upon the growth from what they were able to do in increasing the value of the properties. So I guess you could say that property, UK property and other properties, is kind of in my blood. I'm fascinated by this as a vehicle for protecting people's wealth and indeed their salaries from the high inflation rate that we're seeing worldwide. And that's why I'm making this podcast, because many of my students, particularly those who I'm coaching to improve your interview skills. And many of you, congratulations, are now getting your jobs overseas. Just had another fantastic message from a Turkish engineer, IT engineer, who's now landed a job in London. So congratulations, Volkan. You're doing amazingly well, my friend. But here's the thing. You may be increasing your salary by working overseas in some of these more Western countries, but it's still exposed to erosion from inflation, just like any other country around the world. And I think it's fair to say we're all struggling a little bit with that inflation right now. So what can you do? Well, my kind of thoughts on this is get into the UK property market. Now, before I go any further, this podcast comes with a caveat. Okay, now caveat for those of you who are not familiar with that word means kind of a warning, like buyer beware. Say, I am neither a property advisor, I am not a broker, I am certainly not a financial advisor or investment guru, and I do not claim to be. There is my big disclaimer. I'm not FCA regulated or FSA regulated, but I do work with companies and people and brokers and agents who are. So this is where I'm getting a lot of my information from, and of course my own personal research into these markets and my experience of working in those markets too. So that's me being highly transparent. But what I'm about to share with you in this podcast does come backed up by evidence, research online from the UK government and of course other investment sites, and you can Google this yourself and research this, and that's absolutely what I encourage you to do. Don't just take my word for it, ask the experts the questions too, and if you're interested by the time you get to the end of this podcast in getting into the property market in the UK or perhaps others, but certainly the UK I'm going to be talking about today, and you'd like to know how to access these deals I'm talking about, where do you find these companies and these developments, then get in touch with me. You can drop me an email at hello@initial-impact.com, or even better, just pop down to the link below here and you will see you can get yourself a free first chapter of my Bend Like Bamboo Quantum Attraction course. And in there I've included a bonus special part, okay, specifically looking at creating wealth from UK property. So that is a little bit of something extra for all of you wishing to download that completely free of charge, and I will tip you into and connect you with the people, the places, the developments that can absolutely get you on your way. So let's talk about the market, because this is what we're here to talk about. What do we need to know about the UK market? Well, I would say it is probably the best market, the most stable and reliable market worldwide, simply because of its high regulation. If we talk about other countries worldwide where you can invest your money into property, you might not see it again, and that's no offence to those countries. But the UK, you can pretty much be 99.9% certain that as long as you've got a good conveyancer working for you, that these property deals are watertight. Okay, and this is why I am fascinated to share this with you and excited, because many of my students now are understanding that they need to do more for their retirement or for their children's future than just earn higher and higher salaries, because inflation is just eating away anything they make. So UK house prices, they increased in 2022 at the fastest annual pace since 2007. Right, they reached a record high actually, and the increase was almost 11% year to year. So it took the average house price across the UK to a new record high of 278,000 British pounds, more or less. So if we look at the UK House Price Index, which again you can Google that, it's an official statistical website. The average UK house price in February of 2022 was £27,000 higher than a year earlier on average. So we want to know if that upwards trend is going to continue. Okay, let's have a look at that. Because when we look at it, there are many different regions of the UK, and the areas that I talk about with my clients and I would personally be recommending getting back into here are areas such as Manchester, Leeds, Sheffield, Liverpool, Birmingham. These areas, the university cities. We could put London in there too, but I'm going to just talk about London. And that's actually had the lowest annual growth. The prices there increased by 8.1% in the year to February 2022. And the data there shows that the house price there, an average cost of a home in London is 529,000 British pounds, people. That's a lot of money, right? It means that London prices have risen by an average of more than £55,000 since the start of the pandemic about 2 years ago. But when we look at it, London has still made the least amount of growth compared to other cities. And these are the ones I would recommend you take a look at. And again, if you want to, get down there, get the Bend Like Bamboo free download. And it has the bonus chapter talking about these developments and how to access them. So the average price of homes in Manchester, however, in February 2022 stood at 260,000 British pounds. That was up by 27%. Compared to February 2020, it just stood at 190,000. Now, if we look at Manchester, it's got some fantastic things going on there. You've got Media City, lots of technological investment, new companies moving in there. I don't see that things are going to slow down in Manchester at all. In fact, Jones Lang LaSalle residential forecast for 2022 to 2026 is predicting that house prices in Manchester will see a further 25.8% growth over the next 5-year period. That is ridiculous, but it's how it goes in UK markets. That's significantly higher than the national average, and it's making Manchester, I think, one of the best performing cities across the whole of the UK. Right? Now, just of that figure I've given you, 6% alone is just expected in 2022 at minimum. All right, so that's worth really thinking about. So the city has many factors in its favour, and I think that it's a good one that you can be assured of, as much as I am not an advisor here, that it's a good bet to take a look at. Right? Now, if we compare that to Birmingham, the UK House Price Index again says the average price in Birmingham stood at 217,659. That's a 7.3 increase percentage from 2002 761 a year earlier. So the average price increased by 18,900 over the last 12 months. So house prices in Birmingham are really expected to continue rising because it's also got that status as the UK's second city. It's not too far from London. It is strategically placed, and what I'm interested in is Birmingham is a fantastic university city, like all of these others I'm going to be talking about. And that's the market I'd like you to consider, because let's talk about the student market. I would highly recommend you look at buy-to-let investment properties for the student sector, because leasing them to student tenants, as much as you may have heard of horror stories of student parties and crazy things, it's still a great market sector to get into, because if you get some nice decent student tenants, they often want to keep that place close to the university for at least their number of years on their course. Sometimes it could be up to 7 years if they are doing doctorates or becoming a medical student and then practicing. So it's a good market to get into. Furthermore, if for whatever reason the student isn't going to pay their rent, and again, you do have landlord insurance policies so you can take out in the UK, which I can speak to you about, which would protect you against that. But mum and dad don't want their son or daughter to be thrown out of the accommodation because it means they can't complete their university course, right? So therefore, they will end up paying rent to stop that from happening. So there is a guarantor in place on the student rental properties. So I would say it makes it a firmly secure market, because unlike perhaps renting and putting on Airbnb, which is more, I think, vulnerable to situations like COVID or recessions where people aren't going on holidays, people are still going to always want to study. People are always going to go to university. I mean, even in the COVID lockdown, students still needed to stay within their student accommodation, right? So they needed a roof over their head. So this market is not going to disappear or dry up, okay? When we look at it, I would say that from your point of view, the Birmingham house prices, they're predicted to rise by about 4.9% until 2027. Right, and again, there's high rental demand in that city, so Birmingham also offers a steady property investment opportunity, but perhaps not as much as Manchester. I think Manchester, for me, I would say would be a more attractive opportunity, really. But there are some great deals available, not least leasehold properties. Okay, so get yourself into an apartment block, buy a couple if you can. Okay, and if you're one of the people who think that, well, I'm not an investor, as in I'm an investor, but I'm not resident in the UK and I can't access finance, think again, you can. Many of my Chinese students in particular say, well, I'd love to get into the UK property market, but here's the thing, Mark, I can't. And I'm like, well, why? And they're like, well, because I'm not resident in the UK, I'm not earning money in the UK, and they're also worried about the geopolitical tensions, right? And I'm like, none of those are to be worried about. Firstly, again, in my Bend Like Bamboo downloadable free chapter, I give details of the people who can connect you to their overseas mortgages for non-resident investors. They're doing it day in, day out. They've helped many people, and they can help you too. So as long as you've got 25% deposit to go down into one of these new build off-plan developments, then you can absolutely access that kind of thing. All right, it's not off limits to you at all. The other thing, let's talk about the political tensions. The Chinese residents, as it were, or the residents of China, citizens of China, hold up big parts, support most of the UK property markets in some parts of particularly London, and therefore I don't believe any government would be likely to change its policy on allowing anybody from those countries investing in the UK property market, because it would be like committing suicide for that UK government. So I think we're quite confident here that that will not change, and there should be no discrimination against you for being able to get into those deals, as long as you're financially solvent, you have liquidity, and you can prove that you are earning that money outside of the UK. There's no reason why you couldn't go ahead with this. Okay, now when we look at it, what's going to happen to the UK prices? Okay, there may be some fluctuations ahead, I believe, because UK families are facing a cost of living crisis with inflation at 10-year highs, interest rates hiking up. Okay, it may mean that many people may not be financially stable enough to make a move, and to get a mortgage can be expensive and difficult, but they still got to live somewhere, right? So even if you're not going to get into the student rental market, you've still got an issue of people still need to rent. Okay, so I believe that this is a great opportunity for you, particularly when we look at the depression of the Great British Pound. Okay, that GBP sterling at the moment, if you're in a country where your money is going much further than that, you could take advantage of that depression too, and the slowdown in property prices to really pick yourself up a fantastic deal. Okay, and look at it like a long-term game. Saying to many of my students, the thing is here, when you invest yourself into one of these new build student located accommodations, you are doing many things. Firstly, you've got good tenants, as we've said, 3 to 7 year courses, long-term tenant, paying the rent, or mum and dad will do so too, right? Okay. This is helping you pay the mortgage, and if you don't have to take out a mortgage, then brilliant. You're just making passive income year on year. Furthermore, the asset is appreciating in value. So every year, as we've just said, the prices are going up by sometimes like 13.9%, right? It's just ridiculous. Okay. And finally, if you have a son or daughter and you want to send them to university in any of these university towns like Birmingham, Manchester, Leeds, Sheffield, London, Liverpool, Newcastle, then you already have a property to put them into, so you don't have to pay for student accommodation when they go there. And okay, you might say, well, look, I don't have a son or daughter, or I'm not going to send them to university in the UK. That's fine too. If you want to, you just liquidate the property near that time, and it could probably pay for your son or daughter's education, right? And if you don't have any children and have no plans to do so, it would pay for your retirement. So this is something I highly recommend you take a look into. It's not as difficult as you think. And when you think about all of the objections that people have, like, well, I don't live there, I'm not resident there, as I've just said, I work with FCA and FSA registered people who can help you access those deals, okay? And the details will be given to you in the Bent Like Bamboo program. When we look at UK property or overall, I suppose, it's a tiny island. There's a huge demand for properties and a massive influx of people. The population is booming, overseas students coming into the market. I cannot see this market going anywhere really bad. Yeah, we've had depressions. Yes, we've had crashes. Of course we have. But it tends to move in 7-year cycles in the UK. So I would say overall, if you're playing the longer game, it's still a very safe and secure market to invest into. When we look at it, just the first 3 months of 2022 alone, investors were purchasing 1 in every 10 properties. That's 13.9% sold across the entire length of Great Britain. So that equals 42,980 buy-to-let properties worth around £8.5 billion, right? It's a lot of money. Appetite in property is on the rise. Investors are looking to those safer and higher yielding assets, right, against inflation. It's a hedge against inflation, which is what I'm talking to you about, how to attract that wealth to you. You've got to protect what you've got. Quantum attraction is one thing. It's about putting the thought out there to attract the right development and the right opportunity. But we have to take the action to do something, okay? Got to look after that money, or else you're going to earn that income but see it eroded by inflation. So despite the slower property price increase predictions going forward, the lack of enough rental homes is definitely one reason alone why rents will keep rising at such a pace, okay? That's not going to change anything. So if you're in the buy-to-let market, it's still a very, very good situation for you, okay? I honestly and truly would say, in short, the right property in the right place, location, has the potential in the UK to increase in value over time, right? And the rental income generated is paying off the debt. I think, a no-brainer to a certain extent, but clearly don't take my word for it. I would like to encourage you to check it out a bit more, so you can drop me an email at hello@initial-impact.com, or download that Bend Like Bamboo free chapter, which has the bonus part in about creating wealth from property. Okay, that's really important for you to consider all of your options right now, because I'm here to try and help you think about your life in a very different and unusual way. And sometimes we can't always see the best way out for ourselves. You know, we are blinded by our options and we think we are limited, particularly just to the countries we live in. But the UK, I would say, if I was going to sum that up, the main thing is the 3 S's: security, stability, and sustainable profitability. I mean, in closing, a buy-to-let property in Manchester last year, okay, if you'd have purchased that one, it would have probably increased by 17% in value, which is crazy. A buy-to-let property in Birmingham a year ago, you could have bought that for 250,000 British pounds, and this year it might already be worth 277,500 British pounds, right? Because the Birmingham City's average yearly capital appreciation rate is about 11%. These are solid results backed up by all of the statistics. And frankly speaking, I see that the buy-to-let investments in 2023 is still an excellent option to consider locating your savings in to hedge against this crazy inflation that is going on. Okay. Also, rental prices in the UK grew by 1.8%, okay, between December 2020 and 2021, and that's according to the Office of National Statistics. And if you want to check that out, go to ons.gov.uk. That's where I'm looking, and it's all there for you in black and white. So, honestly and truly speaking, if you don't want to, be worried, concerned, think about your future, your children's future, or your retirement, then look at the UK property market. Increasing rental prices are not only excellent from the perspective of passive income, but they reassuringly support the fact that the market in terms of capital value is not oversaturated, okay? So there's extra capacity here for additional growth. The increases in rental provide either a growing yield from your point of view, or a stable yield as the given asset price will increase within the property. So, you know, both the rising rents and the property values are indicating that further growth is possible with less risk of an investment bubble overall, I would say. And looking from 2007, as I say, if we look at those cycles, the UK price has increased at the fastest rate since 2007. And it's just, I think, a great opportunity for you to increase the value of your wealth, protect what you're earning, and make sure that your money works for you. As I said, quantum attraction isn't just about sitting and thinking about money and it turns up. It takes a little bit more than that. But when we talk about it, when we visualize yourself, how do I own one of these properties? What steps do I need to take? And see yourself doing that and making a good income from it, or a good investment pot for your family to retire or to use for study. Okay, we are creating that new reality. And I'd love to help you try and do that for yourself and your family today. So if anything in this podcast has resonated with you, or perhaps you just want to improve your English as a second language, maybe you just want to get the job overseas first before you go and actually invest in the property there. Maybe you want to go to the UK, then again, get to initial-impact.com. You can grab yourself a 30-minute free consultation with me, and we can hear what's going on with your English, or your confidence, or your interview skills, whatever it is you need to work on. I am here to assist you. And if it comes down to things such as, you don't think you can finance some of these deals, again, get that Bend Like Bamboo. And in that chapter there, I show you and connect you with the right people who can help overseas investors find out exactly how much they can borrow for investing in UK property without having to live or earn in the UK. So really, I hope this has been of great interest to you all today. There's some great books on my reading list. Again, the links are down below. Pop across to my wealth and health store, and the Quantum Attraction bookstore. There's some great reads there, particularly about UK property investment market and what to look for and what not to do. And overall, I just wish you the very best. Remember, the only thing stopping you is your own belief about what you're capable of doing. So go forward and create yourself a nice new reality today. Stay safe, and I'll see you soon.